Hey, it's good to see you. It's Ryan here with DP Marketing.Services and author on the book on digital marketing for plumbing and HVAC contractors. I don't know why that's all out of focus, but it's all blurry. So there you go. Thank you, Zoom. Um, Also, the host of Blue Collar CEO. Thanks for stopping by because I know you're busy, but thanks for tuning in. Coming to your video is something I see a lot of guys talk about, and this is you won't think about it this way, but here's kind of the thing. It's the importance of understanding how to measure ROI for your marketing as an aggregate, as an average across channels. And here's what I mean. Most contractors, I don't care if you're plumbing, HVAC, electrical, if you're home services, right? You're comfortable with this idea of spending money typically and getting something for it. And it could be pay per click, it could be pay per lead, but there's usually this like comfort with this kind of lever you pull that if I pay for X, I'm going to get a Y. And sometimes you can start measuring those things really well and really helpful. And there's a lot of tools. And I'm not going to spend this time on how to measure those ROIs. I've done other videos before, but there's a couple things to keep in mind. One, marketing, like ROI from a business standpoint, is 100% an important metric to know and optimize for. Hands down, absolutely important. From a marketing standpoint, however, that's a really difficult variable to control. Why? ROI is not controlled by marketing, it's controlled by operations. So your operations is going to have a bigger lever on your ROI than marketing will. Now, marketing is going to be able to do what's called cost of acquisition to make sure that you can get the leads at your target acquisition price that you can. But once they come in, it is up to your team to book the call, to sell the job, to make sure you're profitable. That's the ROI part of the equation. So I've done other videos before on the importance of understanding the ROI and the levers you need to do. So I'm not going to talk about that here. However, let's take a real world scenario. So let's say you're doing a marketing mix. Let's say you're doing some AdWords. Let's say you're doing some billboard, and let's say you're doing some postcards. I don't know. And because you're tracking your ROI, you go, hey, cool. Let's say your AdWords is converting at 5-to-1 ROI. Let's say your postcards is 3-to-1 ROI. And let's say your billboard is 1-to-1 ROI. I don't know. I just made up those numbers. On one hand, you can totally break those down by channel and be like, well, let's stop doing the billboard. It's not helping. I'm not breaking even. But in reality, I would make the argument that for a billboard, it's not about lead generation. It's about greasing the wheel with branding and awareness. So it makes, if it's done well, anything top of funnel. And by the way, if you don't know what I mean by top of funnel, grab this book. There's a link in the description, but it talks about that. But anything that top of funnel, billboard, TV, radio, that's going to help things at the bottom of the funnel, like your AdWords and your SEO and your Facebook, convert better. So just because you see a low ROI on something up the funnel doesn't mean that it's bad. And here's a practical example. If you think about McDonald's, every flippin' highway that you drive down, probably you pass a McDonald's semi-truck wrapped with McDonald's French fries. Like they're basically these giant rolling billboards that they have out there, right? But if you went to a McDonald's today, they would probably not be able to do lead attribution that you visited that particular McDonald's because you saw a semi truck on the highway, right? That's going to be the same thing with billboards. It's going to be very difficult to do lead attribution because that's not the point. The point is just to stay in front of people's minds when they don't quite need you. So your ROI numbers are going to look really skewed there. So instead of saying, well, billboards suck, let's stop doing more billboards, treat it as an average. So you're going to take your AdWords, you're going to take your postcards, you're going to take your billboards, you're going to take everything you're doing, and you're going to look at an average ROI for the whole mix. Okay, because you want to make sure that the whole mix is actually working well. You can totally afford to have some things not be quite as efficient as others, as long as the whole mix is working. Now, here's the trade-off. It'd be really tempting to say, let's say AdWords is converting 20-to-1 ROI for you. Okay, that's extremely unlikely, but let's just pretend. Like for reference, Google brags about a 2-to-1 ROI, right? So a 20-to-1 ROI is like flipping made up sounding. But let's pretend, for the sake of this example, let's pretend you find AdWords is a 20-to-1 ROI. Your instinct would be like, well, hell, let's just throw everything we got at AdWords. So whatever all of our marketing budget is, let's just do 100% on AdWords, right? Wrong. Why? The reason you can't do that is every marketing channel that you do, if it's AdWords, if it's postcard, if it's a billboard, it has a maximum capacity. You're going to be limited by the amount of either people in the area, the amount of searches in the area. You're going to have a finite sort of range with which you can maximize coverage. And so there comes a point where you have diminishing returns, that the more you invest in something, the less efficient it becomes. Not because it's broken, it's just because you've reached critical mass. So here's an example. Let's say you live in a community of a million people, and let's say you decide, hey, I want a billboard every 3 miles. Cool. And you realize that when you do a billboard every 3 miles, you over time, your phones pick up, your PPC campaigns work better, everything seems to work better. So you go, great, I'm doing awesome every 3 miles. Let's do it every mile instead. So now I should have 3 times the calls. And that's probably not going to happen. Instead, what will happen is you will not get many more phone calls because you've already reached the maturity max in that particular market for the billboards. And you're not going to get any more phone calls, but you're going to be spending more on billboards. You're going to be spending 3 times as much on billboards. And so if you're looking at only an ROI number, your instinct is going to be able to say, well, the billboard stopped working for me all of a sudden. They used to work, but now they don't. In reality, it's like, nope, you actually just cross this axis where all of a sudden your cost benefit, you're no longer experiencing. You're over investing in a channel beyond its capacity to put back for you. The same can be true with AdWords. If you're in a community where there's only, let's say, 100 searches a month for a term plumber, you can only hit 100 searches. You can't make 200 searches magically appear. You can't make 1,000 searches magically appear. So investing more on AdWords is going to have a finite limit also. Every type of marketing that you do is going to have a limit and a ceiling, and you need to know what they are. Even if it's theoretical, even if it's just a construct. But the point is, it helps you understand when you're making your own marketing mix, does it make sense to do more of A or to do more of B? Does it make sense to judge A because of its ROI performance, or is that not quite reading it well? For instance, if I'm doing a billboard every 3 miles, cool. Am I directly attributing what I think those billboards are doing? Because I'm not going to be able to know 100% that those are creating the leads that I want them to. That's not the role of a billboard. Just like the role of McDonald's semi truck is not to get you to go to semis or go into McDonald's. Make sure you understand what you're measuring, why you're measuring, and make sure you understand that you're giving yourself healthy parameters. You can't just say, hey, this one has a 21, so I'm going to go all in, just like you were if you're playing some sort of roulette. That's not going to be the thing because you only have so much of the pie with which you can leverage. So this is a little bit of a nerd sort of thing, and we can get into some detailed math if you care to, but I just want to throw this out because I know a lot of people struggle with the idea of doing a mix as an average, but I want to talk about why it's important to do a mix as an average. Because if you're doing marketing ROI per channel and using that to make assessments on if channel A is broken or if channel B is broken, you may or may not be right. It totally depends on the channel, but it's really helpful to start at the mix first, make sure the whole marketing channel mix is working well. And then you can zoom down deeper and start asking more thoughtful questions, but don't just take a knee-jerk, top of mind sort of glances at it. It's not going to end well. But I'm curious to hear from you. What is your experience with measuring ROI? Do you do average ROI, average cost of acquisition? And again, remember, I'm mixing marketing and business operations sort of KPIs, but ROI is 100% the focus of operations. So that is where operations lives, and make sure you leverage. Marketing is going to be cost of acquisition. At some point, it doesn't matter how cheap you get leads in the door. If you can't leverage them on your company side, you're not going to be able to see a strong ROI no matter what. But I'm curious to hear from you. What are your thoughts? What do you struggle with? And leave a comment below. As always, guys, follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, check out the podcast, and we'll see you next time.